Howdy, this is Loch Wade, and what are you doing out here, Loch?
We're walking along the Old Spanish Trail, following it from New Mexico to Los Angeles.
So you started in New Mexico.
Started in Abiquiu, New Mexico, and we've walked it in sections over the last 4 years, every winter when I have time off until we've reached here. We're just outside of Las Vegas right now. So,
what's the history of the trail?
The trail was a Mexican trade route that was blazed in 1828, and it was an active trade route between Santa Fe, New Mexico, roughly, and Los Angeles, California. And it lasted until the United States took over the northern part of Mexico, the northern third of Mexico, and then the trail came into disuse.
So was it traveled year-round?
It was traveled that the traders would leave New Mexico in the fall, and they would travel across the deserts into California probably by December, and then they would stay there until the springtime, until maybe March or April, and then they would come back across when there was grass in the desert and maybe a little bit of water.
What was the drive for trade between New Mexico and California?
The drive was that when Mexico gained its independence in 1821, and prior to independence, all trade between cities in Mexico, or what was Mexico, California, had to go back through Spain. So if you wanted to send something from, say, Mexico City to Monterey, it had to go to Spain first and then go all the way back to Monterey, which doesn't make a lot of sense. It made things really expensive. And Mexicans really chafed at that. They chafed at that kind of policy. And so when Mexico gained its independence, the first thing they wanted to do was set up trade routes within their own country, not only for the benefit of commerce, but also to protect their northern frontier, which they knew was being encroached upon by Anglo-Americans.
And who was the route discovered by?
The route was discovered by several different people. Parts of it, there's several different routes on the Old Spanish Trail, and so there are several different discoverers. One of the main discoverers, ironically enough, was an American named Jedediah Smith, who discovered most of the main route of the Old Spanish Trail, the route that loops up through southwestern Colorado and southern and central Utah, and then back down. And then other parts of the trail, say the trail from Las Vegas onwards, were blazed by a Mexican named Antonio Armijo, who blazed the trail straight across from Santa Fe in 1828.
What did they take with them?
They were trading woolen goods, woven goods from the New Mexican area. They were trading goods European goods that came up from Mexico City on the Camino Real, or Mexican manufactured items that were coming from the metropolis, and they were bringing back horses mainly. So they were mainly coming back with just horses, and sometimes some cowhides.
And a typical trader, would he travel by himself or in a big group? What would they take to stay alive?
They traveled in a big group, so that some people say the trail starts in Santa Fe, but it actually everyone gathered together in a little town called Abiquiu on the Chama River, and so people would come from all over New Mexico, and they put together the party there. So it would be a group of different traders who would band together to travel across the wilderness. And Abiquiu was the last civilization, the last outpost of civilization between there and California. There was nothing but Indian tribes and wilderness.
Would people generally walk or ride?
They all rode. In the heyday, the trail was covered in about 60 days either way. So it was a riding. It was a pack trail, and everyone rode horses. No one walked. They had to cover 20 or 25 miles a day. And so they actually covered the distance, 1,200 miles, relatively quickly. And what they did was they packed all their pack animals with a pack called an aparejo, which covers the whole body of the animal, and laded them, and then they just drove them as a herd. They didn't tie them in strings like we think today, and they drove them in a herd across the trail. And so everyone was riding. There'd be outriders, and they'd make their 20 miles, maybe, spring to spring or water source to water source, and where there was good grass, and then they'd stop and camp. and continue on that way. It was much easier to ford rivers on horses and stuff than it is on foot. So it was definitely a trail that you needed to have a horse for.
And when you started your route on a rewalk of the trail, did you bring animals, or?
I did. Because I wanted to at least keep the spirit of the pack animal spirit, even if I didn't follow the letter of it. I had 2 llamas. I had 2 really good pack llamas, and so I started off from Abiquiu with 2 pack llamas, and I used those llamas for every section of the trail until I got to Mesquite, Nevada. So I covered about 800 miles of the trail with llamas.
And what happened with the llamas at that point?
Their feet got so tired, and I realized that I was in a completely different country. The ground was gravelly and rough, and that I was really kind of afraid that their feet wouldn't heal up, that it was too rough and gravelly to continue on with the llamas. And so I got a mule instead, who didn't really work out any better than the llamas did.
What happened to him?
Well, we just started with the mule this trip. We left Mesquite 5 days ago, and so he got away from us twice on the first day, and then he was good for a couple days, and then he got away from us as we came down into Glendale and ran up the freeway and caused mayhem. Luckily, no one got hurt. There were no accidents, but it was kind of a wake-up call for me that that particular animal wasn't going to be a safe animal for the trip. So I sold him. Actually, I think we paid somebody $40 to take him off our hands. Anyway, we got rid of the mule, and so now we're walking and making pretty good time.
And so the plan is from here on out, from just entering Las Vegas, to head to where? Where's the destination?
The destination is the San Gabriel Mission in the Los Angeles Basin, which is about 10 or 12 miles from Los Angeles itself. And that was also kind of where the whole party disbanded. They go there, and then kind of from the San Gabriel Mission, which was sort of that was the first serious. They would come into Rancho Cucamonga, but it was actually just an outpost of the mission, and so the mission was the first real civilization that they came to. And so from that point, they kind of scattered. Some would go to San Diego, and some would go up to Monterey, and some would go to Los Angeles, and so everyone kind of went their separate ways at San Gabriel Mission. So that's going to be my goal, is to make it there.
Good deal. So what got you hooked on doing this particular trip? Why? What sparked your interest?
Well, I'd taken a long trip before. In 1992, I paddled a kayak across the United States by myself, so I was probably the first person to do that. And I guess as I got older, I always kind of had a hankering to do at least one more epic trip, if I could squeeze it in, and so I began studying about the Old Spanish Trail, and somehow I stumbled on the Old Spanish Trail, and I started studying it out, and I'm like, it seemed epic, the history seemed epic, the terrain seemed epic, it's called the roughest pack trail in American history. It was just kind of an extreme trail, and it also interested me that no one had tried to travel the entire thing, every inch of it, in any way at all, since it had been disused in 1848. So I thought that sounds like it for me. I'll give that one a try. It's extreme enough for me. I guess that's probably it.